Welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. I'm your host, Maria Angelova, creator of the Angelova Method, an integrative approach to mind and body connection. The Angelova Method redefines your success equation to include a healthy body and a healthy mind. And welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast with me, your host Maria, where it is all about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. I welcome today my special guest, Amy Daughters, who is an author, and you guys catch the name of this book, Dear Dana. That time I went crazy and wrote all 580 of my Facebook friends a handwritten letter. So let's to find out about what prompted that, what happened after you wrote those letters. Welcome on board, Amy. So glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Maria. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Amy, let's start and get to know you first. Give us 3 words that tell us who Amy is and a little bit of a backstory behind each word.
Okay, well, I'll do my best. Let's see. I am very hopeful. I'm a person full of hope. And, this Dear Dana story took that hope and exploded it and wanted me, made me want to share it with the whole world. So um, I think I'm very humorous. So, which is pretty much my approach to life. Like my whole goal is to make people laugh. So that's, hence the title of the book that went on and on. I cannot believe the people in publishing let me keep my subtitle, So there was a
Not
few,
long, but it's very catchy, I do have to say.
yeah, no, it's great, but there's a few meetings about how do we fit that on the cover. And then I think I'm relentless, and I think that's another thing that comes through in this story. Um, just I don't stop once I get a hold of something and I get an idea. And I think those 3 words describe me, and they do a great job of describing me in through the lens of this story.
Okay, so let's hear what happened that got you to write handwritten letters, not even type letters to where you just sub the name, but handwritten letters. Tell us a little bit more. I am so intrigued.
Okay, well, the story starts. Um, it was probably 2013, and I, like everyone else, was on Facebook. And I thought, oh, I had a friend's name come to mind. Her name was Dana. She was a friend who I worked at a summer camp with in Texas in 1986. So 30 years, zero contact with Dana. I was like, oh, I wonder what happened with Dana. So I put her name on Facebook, like we all do. She pops up. I'm like, there she is. And so I friend request her. She accepts. Neither of us really probably remember much about each other. We both have huge personalities. We're both loud, and so I remembered that resonated with me, that we were good friends probably 8 weeks. And so I do what everyone else does. I started looking at her page and I realized that she has 5 kids. She lives in Louisiana, and she has 4 daughters, and the youngest is a son named Parker, and he is got cancer, and it's bad enough that he's at St. Jude in Memphis. So he's the kid's fighting for his life. So immediately, as a human being, as a mom, as a person, I become engaged in this story. And her big personality is coming through on Facebook. So I start following along with the story. She asked people to pray. I like to pray, so I start doing that. But all this in the background, she has no idea that I'm even on her radar. And I could feel myself getting kind of grabbed by this story. So I follow along. Parker goes into remission. She kind of goes off, the back. I still see her on Facebook. And then in 2014, Parker relapsed. And I sat there and I read her posts, and they were very, they really grabbed your heart. I was like, I think what I'm doing is like a thunderbolt from the skies. I was like, I'm going to start writing them letters. And I hadn't written anyone a letter in like 30 years. And I never met Parker, and I literally had no contact with Dana in 30 years. So this is all mezzo. But I was like, oh, I'm a writer. That's what I'm going to start doing. So I just kind of put her on my schedule. I started sending Parker and Dana cards to the Ronald McDonald House for about 6 to 8 weeks. And the beginning of 2015, and there are no good words for this. Parker passes away at 15 years old. And not that it had anything to do with me, but I was like, what do I do next? Because I kind of felt called about the letters. Like, I'm going to do this because I should do it. And I was like, well, I'll just keep writing the letters. So I literally went and like stalked her husband's address, his work address, because I was like, where do I send the cards now? So I started writing her to this to this office address, which again is like I kept going levels of crazy, like crazy, crazy, crazy. So I start doing this, and then like magically, not only does Dana from 30 years ago send me her home address, she starts writing me back. And so for 2 years, me and this person who I know nothing about start sending letters weekly to each other, sharing all our business. She shares about her grief. I was kind of a safe space for that. I start looking at my life from the outside in, like 1-page letters turned into 7-page letters. And we had no idea what the other person believed. And then we start trusting each other. And it was literally, and like, I didn't know when she was reading what I wrote. She had no idea what it was. So freeing because we had this free space where we had this person on the other end reading all our crap. And so I guess I'd written Dana for about 8 months. And I was like, wow, if my life can really be blown up by this girl, like who even is she with this wild hair? Because that was my first takeaway when I saw her back on Facebook. What happens with the rest of these people? So then I went next level. I put everyone's name in a box and I started drawing these names out. And I got stationery made that said, Amy Wineland Daughter's your Facebook friend. And like randomly, I started sending these people's letters. And I'll tell you what, it was the greatest experience outside of having my children of my entire life. It was life changing.
So I have so many questions. One is, did you ever consider like calling Dana and just talking to her instead of writing a letter?
We asked ourselves, because now we're BFFs, like we've reunited in person. We're all up each other's business. We live one state away, but we see each other at least once a month. We talk about that, but we never, I think we just respected that this was something special. And I think we both liked the space it created. So we didn't want to, I remember getting an email from her, after those 2 years. And I was like, this is kind of wrong because it's, you'd hear about the friendship zone. It took us out of the letter zone. I almost felt like it was wrong, but I think maybe it's a credit to how much it meant to both of us because it was a profound experience. Enough so that I got a letter from Dana yesterday, even though I talked to her this morning on the phone.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. And tell me, when you write to somebody who you haven't spoken to in 20 years, I'll tell you, I can relate to some of your experience because in college, I had a great friend, and he graduated before me and he moved away to New York. And that was still the time where we weren't sending letters, but that was like when emails first became a big thing.
Right.
And we would email like every day, and like, it wouldn't be just like, hey, how are you doing? It would be like, this is what I did yesterday. And this is how it's almost like a journal entry, but to somebody else. And we would go back, and we did that for a while. And I'm like, now, when I was connecting with you, I was like, why did we stop? I mean, that created such a deep level of friendship. Like, it was literally like every day. And I would be like looking forward to go check my emails to see what's going on with him or to see what he thinks about. That was the age when I was 20, and like, he could give me the boys' perspective on things and I could give him the girls' perspective on things. And it was so cool, and it deepened our friendship. It took it to such a great level. So I'm just curious, when you reach out to somebody who you haven't spoken to many years, like, what do you say in those letters?
Well, what you spoke to on the Dana side of the letters, that's exactly what it became. We shared everything, and what you said was perfect, because she'll say to people now, like, it was more like Dear Diary than Dear Dana, because that's what it was. Like, I would write all my business, but then you get this great perspective because you're looking from the outside in, But to the people who I hadn't spoken to in 20 or 30 years in the Facebook letter portion of it, that's a great question. So the first thing I did is I would go look at their profile page, and because I had, like everyone else, I had several hundred friends, and it's funny how many things I had assumed that were wrong about people, not because I have bad intentions, but whoever sits down on that list and looks at them individually and be like, oh, and I had people like miscategorize. Wait, I went to high school with you. I didn't go to college with you. Or wait, how do I know you? We danced at that wedding together. Wait, but so I would go to their page and look. And first of all, I was like, oh, that's how we're connected. And immediately I would remember some part of that interaction, like, Maria, you were there for me in junior high school when my grandmother died. Or Maria, we were in college together and we survived that accounting class, and then you dated that guy and then you told me to get away from that fool and you were so right, But the other thing, I was like, oh my God, Maria, I kind of knew what you did, but you were so accomplished. Look at you're doing to impact people. Look at this ripple effect you're having through your work and wellness. And so, boom, then it's easy to write a letter to Maria, because I'm like, hey, Maria, congratulations on your life. I'm really proud to be your friend. And hey, Maria, thanks for being there for me. in junior high school when I was a big dork and played the flute, so those letters and I did it not because I'm a great person. I did it because I was trying to write all these people letters. But friend by friend, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm connected to these amazing, fascinating Marias, over and that it was like 500, 600 times. I was like, wow, like relationally speaking, I'm knocking it out of the ballpark over here. So my grateful meter went off the chart. And the other thing, I just had there was so much of an appreciation for Maria's life is as real as my life, because then I was like, you've had struggles, you've had people struggle with cancer or you've lost people. And I knew that, but until I wrote you a letter, I didn't get that your human experience is just as real as mine.
And you didn't connect to that experience if you're just scrolling through the pages and browsing, rather than really stop, pause, and reflect. Did you hear from a lot of these people back?
Right. Yeah. And I have a number here. My response rate, because I'm a numbers girl.
That's like your email response rate.
Yeah, I'm kind of a numbers girl, so I have an infographic. 74% of the people responded in some way.
And in some way, I was going to say in a letter or in some way.
Yeah,
okay.
And I think handwritten letters was the lion's share of that, about 40% of that. And the responses, first of all, people really shared with me because I didn't realize that a handwritten letter is so intentional that people connect the dots. They felt like they mattered, which is hugely important in the culture we're in. But if like, let's say you send me a letter, Maria, I know that you had to go find paper and a pen, and then you had to
know about it.
Right. You had to write it down, and then you had to put it in an envelope. Then you had to find a stamp. Who even has those? Then you had to get out of your place and find where to mail that thing. And so people felt like rock stars. And again, I wasn't being intentional doing this project. I was just kind of being nuts because that's what I am. And so, yeah. And it just, people were just blown away. And I told everyone, I'm writing everyone. They're like, oh, you picked me. They just felt so special. And they felt like, and I think when we can make someone else feel like they matter, if we can feel like we matter to another human being, that is just hugely, it's not just something, it's almost everything.
Yeah. And I do have to say, I do remember, so I'm from Bulgaria. We moved to the United States in 92. And that was still the time when email was not there, the way to communicate. And, a minute international call was like, I don't know, $1.20. So literally the calls were like, hey, how are you doing? Talk to you next weekend. Bye, I love you. And hang up. It wasn't like now you can talk on so many apps and social media, right? And you can just say nothing and be on the phone for hours. But that was the time when, with my family and closest friends, I was a teenager, we wrote letters.
Right.
And then these were international letters. So it's not like you mailed it today and it got there tomorrow. Oh, no.
Right.
By the time it goes to Bulgaria and then takes them time to respond and come back. It would be like a month and a half, sometimes longer. And there would be like thick letters. I remember my dad made the comment. He was like, child, these things are costing money to mail because when you're a teenage girl, you have a lot to share with your best friend, right? Who is across the ocean.
Yeah.
And I have a box of letters from back then. So, oh my gosh, from like 30 years ago. That just makes me sound old. But the other thing that's making me think, Amy, is I think nowadays we so seek that human connection because it's so easy to browse through social media and not even be into it, right? You're just browsing and you're, okay, that's happening. This is happening. Instead of really reflecting to like, wow, what is this person going through? Or casting judgment, right? Oh, well, he or she does that, or he or she is such and such. And what a beautiful way to connect to people on a personal level. And I can totally see when somebody would feel special, because I do have to say, I have stopped writing Christmas cards or holiday cards, but I love receiving them.
Right. It's, yeah. And I think you're right there. Like, it is a gift and a way to connect. And I had assumed, it's funny. I wrote a girl, and this is in the book, who had a lifestyle that looked perfect. She was sitting on a boat and she looked beautiful and like she looked like a model. And so they had champagne. I was like, and if we're going to be honest, we compare ourselves relentlessly online to everyone else, and she wrote me back and shared that she had just been diagnosed with anxiety disorder, and she had wanted to hear from a friend. And so here I'm looking at this girl's life, and it looks perfect. And I realized over and over again, their lives are as real as my life. Their lives are as real as I hope everyone else understands mine is. And I think that social media is such a great tool. It really is. I wouldn't be talking to you without it. I wouldn't have my best friend Dana without social media. So I think to unilaterally say it is absolutely the worst thing that ever happened to us is absolutely wrong. I think it's a jump off point. It allows us a jump off point for a lot of real relationships and connecting points in a way to keep in touch, but I definitely think there's more.
I have friends from all over the world, and I love social media because I don't get to talk to them, but I can see on social media, oh, they had kids, or they got married, or they got divorced, or they're going through this, they have a new job, and so forth. And 30 years later, I kind of know what's going on to them. And with some of them, I'm closer. And with some of them, we're more intentional to communicate more often. And then through my business, I mean, that is how I share my message. It's through social media.
Right.
And my goal is to inspire people, to make them feel good, to bring positivity. And I use social media for that. I am very intentional, I'll tell you, to not compare myself, because I know better. And when I have that awareness that when I start comparing, I just pause and say, we're all humans. We're all going through our experience. And, just because somebody appears to be a step forward, I am very mindful with being judgmental, right? Like, I don't know what this person is going through. And I think social media in some ways allows us to grow in a different way. Now, there is the other danger of just mindlessly browsing through social media for hours and hours, where that's when we get into problems. But I do think social media can be used powerfully, and like, wow, what a great way to get in touch with people.
No, I absolutely agree. I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't have had the experience I had without it. But I think your whole pause when the comparison things comes on is such a powerful tool, which I will use and take away from this conversation, and I think that's just such a great thing to share, and I will say about the letter writing that, writing 600 letters is crazy. I mean, nobody needs to do that, but I will say from my own, and it's interesting what you said about holiday cards, because, the Facebook letter experience ended that for me, because I'm not going to write those people another letter. But this year I've tried to write birthday cards to people. And I will tell you that I spend probably 25 minutes every morning writing 2 or 3 birthday cards. And it is such a small investment, both financially and time wise. And from a wellness standpoint, I'm not doing it for any other reason, just because it's almost like this whole letter thing is adrenaline for me, because I realize how much, not just how much good it is for the people, the recipients, but for me as a person. And it's probably my best wellness practice I've ever done is writing birthday cards. Just, not for any other purpose, not to feel, I'm not writing a book. I'm not, it's just, yeah, but just and that's the thing. You could write 3 lines. That's the great thing about a birthday card. Nobody feels like they have to reply. You can say happy birthday in 2 sentences, or you can write 6 pages, and you still completed the task of making someone feel incredibly special when no one gets birthday cards anymore.
I think it was the first or second year of my business. I was very intentional to send cards, but here is the thing. I did pre-printed cards, and I was like, I'm just going to stamp them and send them. And then I was like, that's so impersonal. So then I went, and on each, even if it was like, love Maria, or something like, oh boy, you're well. But when you do that times 700.
Yeah, no, but I don't think, and I think that's the thing. I think the like, if you look at my story, I think that it's easy to think, oh my God, that's overwhelming. That's a great story, but that's overwhelming. And I don't think that, because I think your email story is a testament to, like, the handwritten letters are great, and that's so intentional, but maybe your goal is to send 1 a week or 1 every 2 months, and you still have the same impact, but intentionally reaching out to each other in a way that's one-on-one. That's what I'm saying.
And I think that's the beauty of what you did. It's that connection, which is, I think, so necessary for mental health, for connection. With the client this morning, we were talking about, I asked her to do something, and she was kind of like checked out. And I was like, are you okay? She goes, I am so distracted. And I said, I think we're also distracted nowadays, right? Where like our attention span has become this short. And I see it more in people. You say something to a person, they're like, yeah. But they're really not paying attention. And I think that's starting to affect the way we communicate. It's starting to affect our relationships. It's starting to affect the human of us, and we start craving that because it's not there anymore.
Right.
And I think being intentional with it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be a letter. It can be an email, it could be a Facebook message, whatever you want it to be. It could be a text message, right?
Well, just one-on-one though. And the handwritten letter that takes it to another level. And I will just tell you, because I've seen people respond to it, but that's not necessarily the thing. And the other thing about the letters or the cards, you can write one sentence, like you said, love Maria. That's, they still know that they matter, and a text makes them feel like they matter. This does not have to be, I think everyone has, we don't need to all go the same way to get the same result. Like it's not a blueprint. Like what worked for me is not necessarily right for you. And we all have this inclination to do something. And I think it's acting on that. Like you hear the story and what does it mean? You go do that. That's what I encourage. We need to encourage each other to follow through on whatever our, passion is, our inclination, or the big idea we came up with.
Yeah, I love it. I do have to say, I love handwritten stuff. I mean, when I journal, I still write like with a piece of paper.
Right.
I like to write handwritten cards. Like there is something special for me in the way I relate to you. I mean, you should see all the notebooks I have. Like I take notes, like in school, like that's the way I I process things. So, excuse me. So actually, Amy, as we're speaking, one idea that comes up for our listeners is, you guys, I would love for you to write somebody, anybody who you want to write, whatever, a text message, a social media message, a letter, whatever it is, connect to somebody. And Amy, I do one thing is when I hear people go into judgment and they say, I don't know, I don't like somebody from this race or from this ethnicity or somebody, I encourage people to say, go and meet that person and hear their story. And you might be shocked of how close to yours their story is, because it's exactly the point that you made earlier. We appear to be so different, but at the end, we're all united by the denominator of human. Wow. And we all go through the same ebbs and flows, the same doubts, the same, we all crave the same things. We all want love, approval, connection. And I challenge you guys to do that. Be rebellious. And whenever you think of connecting to someone, actually take action. Like Amy said, actually do something about it. Because you don't know whose life you might impact exactly when they need it. When you send even a, hey, I'm thinking of you, I hope you're okay, right? It doesn't have to be long, but it does have to be sincere and genuine. Amy, what's one piece of advice, whether it's related to this experience or not, or a favorite quote that you want to share with us?
Well, I would just say my biggest takeaway from the Facebook project, that's what I call it, touches on what you just said. And those were beautiful words, is that when one person reaches out to another, intentionally with nothing but goodwill on the line, that all of a sudden, all those things that separate us, religion, politics, the things we see that create this divide between us, what we believe in and what we stand for still matters, but those things start to magically dissipate. And I think the hope that we so seek, desperately seek, is all around us. It's certainly at the other end of a letter, but the other end of a Facebook message, a text, the other end of a phone line, a Zoom call. I think the thing we need is in each other, and we just have to go back out and take it back from the world that has, sucked so much out of us.
Yeah. And, I also think, to the point you just made, those things that divide us, I believe when you have an authentic connection to somebody and when you can respect each other's opinion, even if they're different, because you know what? It is a beautiful thing to have diversity of opinions. We have just gone so far to say, well, if you believe this, I'm not going to talk to you, and to take sides. And again, we're all human and we all want the same thing. And when we open to communication and hearing each other's thoughts and opinions, it's an enriching experience rather than a divisive experience.
Exactly. We're participating in conditional connection, as opposed to unconditional connection. And that's The promised land is when we get off each side and meet in the middle. And the most important people we can meet are the people who have different opinions that we do. And if we offer that hand of friendship and offer that respect, then the biggest thing is we'll receive it back. And that's when our world changes the way we want it to change.
Yeah, step forward with love, and love will come back. And that's what unites us again.
Right.
All right, Amy, what is your definition of rebellious?
Rebellious. I think my definition of rebellious is to do those things, those passions that you have that the rest of the world will be like, what is she thinking? And I think that's all within us, our rebellion. We all have a different, rebellious thing that we want to bring out. And I think, bravely stepping forward and refusing to listen to everything else, that's my definition of rebellious. And I think it's also rebellious, especially as women, to support each other unilaterally. Like you said, if I feel like you're one step ahead of me, but I'm like your biggest cheerleader, go Maria. And I think that's rebellious in the culture we're in,
I agree with you. Yes, it's and goes back to love, support, cherish each other, instead of divide, separate, judge, compare.
Yeah.
And it's a much different standpoint.
Yeah, and that's rebellious. Yep.
That is rebellious. Where can people find you, and where can they find the book?
Well, the book is available wherever books are sold, Amazon, wherever you can buy a book. If you have a local bookstore, I love local bookstores, they can order it for you. My website is amydaughters.com. That's got all my deets. Plus, you can contact me through there, and I'd love to hear from anyone who, wants to continue the conversation.
Yeah. And I would love for anybody who takes action that we suggested, that we challenged you with, to drop us a note, and let us know and share what happened, because sometimes you'll be surprised what might come out of those little, hello, I've missed you, I love you, thinking of you messages, right? So
Amen.
Keep us posted what comes out of that. Amy, thank you so much for sharing your story and for inspiring me. It's definitely like, wow, I love writing. How many people have I not talked to in a long time? I don't know that I can reach out to all my Facebook friends. However, it's easy for me to send a message and just say, I'm thinking about you. So thank you for inspiring me. Do hope you guys feel inspired as well. Definitely hope you enjoyed that. And it got you to think a little bit deeper on the topics that we talked about. Follow Amy, check out the book. And as always, remember to stay rebellious. Amy, thank you so much for being with us today. And I wish you continued success.
Thank you so much.
Did you enjoy the conversation? Like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Want to redefine your success equation to include a healthy body and a healthy mind? Check out our website at rebellious-studio.com.